Hey folks, Quill18 here, and welcome to another episode of Let's Make a Base Building Game in Unity over here, codenamed Project Porcupine. We are currently in a state where we have a bug in our stockpile code. That's what we're working on, where our stockpile is asking for goods to be loaded over, and then our character sort of sits here, and we've realized what's going on is our character is trying to fill the stockpile, because we can stack up to 50 units of steel in a tile. So we deliver 2, and then the character then says, okay, you still need 48 more units of steel, so I will bring you more units of steel. Oh, I happen to be standing on 2 units of steel. I pick up these and then instantly drop them, and then instantly pick them up and instantly drop them, and do that over and over and over again until some math error somewhere caused it to actually hit a hard error, which caused us to be deceived. If we weren't hitting this error here, what we would have noticed is our character was just sitting in place. And we would have been like, why is that? And we would have found out he was picking up the same stuff over and over and over again. So now what we've done is we've added a flag at the end of the last video for our job. Our job to deliver goods to the stockpile, we've added a flag to the jobs to specify whether you're allowed to take from stockpiles. From stock aisles. Stockpile. There we go. Which defaults to true. But for this one job where we're delivering stuff to stockpiles, we never want to take stuff from one. So we've added this flag. It doesn't do anything yet. We have to add this logic somewhere. And really, it's going to be our character. When our character goes looking for something. And I still want to redo this do job. I think there's too much going on. It's too complicated. But we're going to go looking. And our character is over here. The job requires inventory, but we're not carrying it. So we're going to go find one for it. Are we standing on a tile with goods that are desired by the job? Well, what we have to make sure is that we're not standing on a stockpile tile. How do we tell that? Well, right now, stockpile is just a furniture of type stockpile. And it's always going to be furniture. But rather than check the actual name, I'm going to put in a helper function here. That is simply a public bool is stockpile. If, and then we just return object type. What is my thing called? Is it furniture type? Don't I know what I am? Object type. There it is. I was pretty sure about that. If object type is equal to stockpile. There. We just return this. So it'll evaluate to true or to false. So we're just going to use this. We'll probably want this to be more sophisticated later on, but at least we've got it in a little helper function. So we say... I'm going to put in a little check here before we check the desirability, because I think this function is going to be a little bit more work because we sort through a bunch of arrays. What we're going to say is, hey, is if the tile dot my job dot tile dot is stockpile dot furniture. All right. Let's break this up a bit. There's going to be a long little if. So if the furniture here is not equal to null, and my job dot, or okay, actually it's not like that. It's if my current tile, if my current tile dot furniture is equal to null. Or if it's not null. So we want to make sure we're not standing on a stockpile, right? So we want to make sure if our current tile dot furniture is null, then it's obviously not a stockpile. Or if it does have furniture but is stockpile, returns false, then that's okay too. Or finally, maybe okay. So at this point we are standing on a stockpile, but is it possible that my job dot can take from stockpile, then that's okay. So we need one of these things to be true. Either we're not standing on a furniture, or we are standing on furniture but it's not a stockpile, or yeah, okay, it's a stockpile but my job can take from a stockpile. So that's probably fine. And I don't know, we could potentially reorder this for more optimization, but I think it's going to be, these are all pretty quick checks. So we make sure that we either aren't standing on a stockpile or we're allowed to take from it. So having done that, well, that's only part of it, because actually the other thing is this helper function over here. We need to have an extra Boolean in here. Can take from stockpile. So we're going to have the same check over here. So when we find, so what we're doing here is we're looping through every inventory of the type required. And we're making sure that inventory actually belongs to a tile. But we are also, and we're going to do an either. Either can take from stockpile, or we have to make sure that either inv.tile.furniture is equal to null, or inv.tile.furniture.isStockpile is equal to false. There we go. Either we can take from a stockpile, or the tile that isn't furniture, or the tile is furniture but isn't stockpile. And boom. There we go. Long if statements that don't fit on the screen the way I have my font size. There we are. Something like that. I don't know if that makes it any clearer. And then, get closest inventory of type over here. We need to just pass it the myjob.canTakeFromStockpile parameter over here. So most of the time this is going to be true. Which I guess with that basis, since these are ors, we're going to do it this way. This is such a minor optimization, but since can take from stockpile is going to be true most of the time, this will evaluate to true, which means it will never have to check the other ors. There we go. Because almost every job can do that. Although maybe, who knows, maybe the stockpile job, even though it's only one type of job, maybe that's going to be one of the most common jobs there are. So let's give this a go, see if we haven't made a syntax error. Okay, we have. Job does not contain. Apparently I can't freaking spell. Oh, okay. Just failed to save the file. That's all. So load. First part's going to work. Now we need to make sure he doesn't stand in that tile. Aha! He's going to grab that stack, bring it there, grab the 3 stack, and bring it there. Okay. Good. Now, there's still going to be the situation. This is still going to happen. If we deliver the final good, if, let's say we could test this. Oh, this will be great. We can actually test this. We generate this, these tiles of stuff. These aren't being saved. The inventory is not being saved right now. We generate it on the fly over here. So we're going to make a stack of exactly 50 over here. And this is the first one that gets created, so we know that's what we're going to grab from. So what will happen now is that error that we had such a hard time figuring out before, well, this is what we're going to deal with now. It's like if the errors had presented themselves in the opposite order, the debugging would have been so much simpler. So he's going to grab the stack of 50, and this is going to give us an error. Bam. So what's happening here is we are still running job worked over here, and we are making sure to specify that, hey, change this when we figure out what's going on with the job. We are... Right. So what's happening with job worked? That wasn't for this part. I just realized something else. With job worked, I mean, again, we remove the job, which cancels the job. And then we add the goods in there. But what's interesting is this job worked is being run from inside of job do work. And normally, it's this part that happens. Has all materials equals false. Well, we're still going to call job work and do some stuff. And I did this here because I didn't actually want this time to change. It is kind of awkward that we call job worked twice regardless. But in the second case, I kind of want, I mean, I could avoid having to do this twice. I just don't want to change the job time if we don't have all the materials, right? So what we could do is move this here, check to see, has all materials, equals false, and then return. The downside to this is job worked will be called with the previous job time. Not the updated one. But I don't want to update the job time if it doesn't have all the material. You know what I'm saying? So I think despite the fact that it sort of is a little bit of duplication of this job worked, I think this is going to be okay. But what's interesting is most of the time it's calling job work from over here. The time where it gets delivered the stack of 50, this obviously, it doesn't return false. So it does this, then it calls job worked, and then over here it calls job complete. And I hadn't realized this, but the bug is this. When we call job cancel, it actually calls the characters on job ended function over here, which does some stuff, including setting my job to be equal to null. But the assumption was always like, okay, it's job completed or canceled, whatever. But I didn't realize that this is not. It's not clearing the on job complete callback for the job. Which normally would get cleared somewhere, wouldn't it? When we in queue? No, I don't think it happens anywhere. Well, that's quite interesting. That's very interesting. And then there's just, what if we queue up a job with negative time, but it doesn't have the materials? So we call do work, but never actually gets completed. Yeah, there's something in here I'm unhappy about. Anyway, what it feels like, definitely, is when our job gets completed, over here in our character, we want to unregister job cancel callback for on job ended and on job canceled. Or, right, no, still on job ended, on job complete. We no longer want to be notified in case there's multiples. This is like, this sort of gets around this particular error message, but doesn't necessarily get around some of the weird workflow timing stuff that's going on. I feel like at some point later on, we'll encounter something else. So this should just deliver this and no longer give us an error. And then our character should be more than happy to go and work some other job. And in fact, grab the material from over here. Ah! Whoa, look at that! Holy crap, that worked awesome! Now, we're still not getting a display for our stockpile, but did you see what just happened there? So I delivered the good of 50 stuff over here. Then I said, hey, build a wall over here. A wall requires 5 material. So grab the 5 material from the tile it's already on, use it to complete the wall, and then this thing is short 5 material, so grab the 4 and then grab 1 more and fill that up. Our system is working. It is working perfectly. I still feel like some of these timing issues are going to come and bite us in the butt later on, but our system is working right now. So that's good. Now, what isn't good is the fact, and I'm not pleased about this, is our inventory sprite control. Ooh. Oh, that's even worse than I thought. How come? Huh. Because I was going to say, I thought, like, we can't see how much is sitting in this tile here, right? And I thought it was because our furniture sprite was above the inventory sprite. But that's not the case at all. Well, I mean, it might be. We can actually test that if we grab this and move it here. No, you can see, because of our stacking order, our inventory is supposed to be on top of our furniture. The problem is there's not an inventory sprite for the inventory that is sitting in this tile. Why is that? Well, let's see. Actually, that's a great question. Why is that? Because when we call place inventory into a tile, this should call... Oh, we never call any callbacks. It's just when the world gets created. Oh. All right. Okay, so when the world gets created, because we have an inventory sprite controller. This is what's responsible for making the inventory stuff that's sitting in a tile be visible. And that program start, we check for pre-existing inventory and run these callbacks, the on inventory created. And we register inventory created. But what we don't do is ever call it anywhere else in our code. So our inventory manager over here sometimes needs to create a stack. So here, for example, tile was empty. So what we need to do at this point is go tile.world.on So we have the CB inventory created. But it's actually our inventory manager that would kind of want to know about this. It's almost like these callbacks here shouldn't exist for the world. They should exist. This should be a callback that the inventory manager has. True. Or we provide like a fixed function over here on inventory created inventory inv, which just calls this for inv, assuming if not equals null. We call that public void. And then over here in inventory manager, we call that for inventory. Hang on. For tile.inventory. And it's actually kind of like for the else we need to call the on inventory change. Do we have that for inventory? Do we have a change callback? I suspect we don't, but we need that. Oh, we do have one. Okay, I don't know if we use it yet, but that's okay. Oh, okay, we do call it over here. So if there is a... Oh, yeah, of course we do, because the numbers change. So all that we're missing is creating the new one over here. So in theory, assuming we've got that in there... There you go. There's our stack. And if we build a wall over here, say that's a stack of 45. It's going to get built. Pick up this, drop it off there. That'll become 49. Grab that, drop it off there. That will become 50. You can't see it. I guess I can just build the door over here to get you out of the way, since doors don't use any materials. Okay. All right. I still feel like there may be something that comes to sort of bite us in the butt with some of these job timings. I still feel like there's something here, but it might. I don't know. I always feel uneasy when there's this sort of duplication, but it might strictly be correct. Also, the fact that the job work callback will get called and the on complete at the same time, and there's a little bit of a funny thing where we do remove the job over here. I mean, we could at the same time, since we're actually destroying the job outright, after we remove the job, one of the things we could do is set the, we could tell this job to no longer call any on completes or anything weird like that. But overall, it seems to be working and actually probably is fine. I'm probably worrying for nothing. All right. What next? I actually expected this to take a little bit longer. Well, what could happen next is we could actually work on the tile visuals. Right, because we could have this maybe look a little bit better. Because this does link with neighbors. Oh, that's interesting. See, one of the things when we implement sort of mega stockpiles, right, what we'll want to do is make it so that these jobs, so any job that asks for more steel, so like this whole stockpile as a whole should manage all of its jobs as one. Basically, what we'll probably do is instead of, so we'll keep these all sort of as individual little pieces of furniture, to the extent where the jobs that get created, they point to an individual tile, right? Deliver steel plates to this tile. But maybe what we'll do is we'll only have like the top left tile actually be responsible for creating jobs for everyone. But then what it could do, because when we had our stack of 4 tiles here, what we could have done is make it so that the other 4 squares here actually don't ask for any steel until this one is fully satisfied. Or, I don't know. Or I guess you would still ask for more than it could take. So this here, you would still say, yeah, deliver me like 50 units of steel. You know, whatever your max stack size that you can carry is, even though you'll only be able to drop off 46 here. So you'll drop off the 46, and then we'll need to make sure that our character is smart enough to say, I still have 4 more. Like I tried to drop off as much as I could in this tile. I still have 4 more. Is the job still looking for more? And then make it so that on worked over here. To do when we have our sort of mega or meta stockpile logic, what we'll want to potentially do is, instead of canceling the job, I don't know, is just move it to the next tile or something like that. I suppose like canceling and recreating it is still potentially fine. I don't know. We'll figure out. There'll be some more logic when we get the mega stockpile behavior. For now, this is going to have to be good enough in the short term until I can figure that out. I don't know if the mega stockpiles are going to be the thing we want to do next. It is going to be a little annoying if things don't get stacked up properly, so it actually might be. I just sort of want to move on to a different function. But one of the things we could do is we could go into our furniture images over here and say, grab our wall. I'm just going to duplicate this. And, we already have stockpile. But I'll just make another, this stockpile is just a white square. So if I remove this, boop. And normally this would be annoying because we'd have to relink everything, right? But right now in our program, we actually just load everything by name. So that's not necessary. So our stockpile over here, I have like effects and things like that, right? So if we turn this off, what do we want? Like just an outline almost for the stockpile. So we could put in a thin stroke. We want it on the inside. And I suppose black might be fine. I don't know. We might want a different color for our stockpile outline, but let's just use black. That's okay. And then what's actually going to happen here with our layer is we're going to make sure to, I guess, do we rasterize this layer? I think so. Let me make a duplicate of this. And then I'm going to rasterize this layer so that it's just a graphic. And then I'm going to, I guess, use the magic wand tool. Never use that. And just delete the insides. And then save that. Go back over here. And then we kind of have to, because I don't think I can rename things over here. No. So we have to open this up and go through each one of these and actually call it stockpile underscore. I'm just going to copy that. And then, actually, it's probably better if I don't copy the underscore. There we are. That'll make life a little bit easier. And then, I can even double click on wall. That's nice. That the text box doesn't select the underscore and everything else after it either. It properly treats it as a word break. And just rename these. And then we've got these over here. Are there any more? No, it's just these middle bits, right? And then that middle bit. And that one over here. And this one in the middle. Although here it's got, the 4 ends. So we'll rename all these. Oops. And we don't have anything there. That's placeholder. But this is going to be a good example of actually one we're going to want to use for our stockpile. So we'll apply that. Close this, make sure they all got renamed. Indeed they did. Then we go in the place where we define all our furniture, which right now is still in the in this world thing. And for our stockpile, we want to say, yes, you do link to your neighbors to sort of become part of a larger object. So now, if we hit play, first of all, our stockpile should just be a transparent little outline there. Yeah, black's definitely not going to work. But then if we do that and that, there we go. Stockpile. Maybe we fill it in with something that's like semi-alpha transparent. We can do that. What if, okay. Let me back up here. What if we make the stroke white? Uh-huh. Oh, right. That's still, this is the rasterized layer. Now, you can't just fill with transparency. Guess we're still going to want two. This one doesn't have the stroke effect. There we go. This layer is going to be, so I'm going to use the paint bucket tool. Oh yeah, I can't see it because of that layer. Fill all these with, whoops, with white. And then on this layer, I'm gonna, yeah, actually once again rasterize it. The nice thing about using white as your color is you can tint it inside of Unity, or actually in Photoshop quite easily. So then again, I'll just magic wand out the outside. So now we're seeing the bottom layer shine through. And I'm gonna take this layer and set it to like, I don't know, 10% opacity. I don't know if that's gonna be enough, we're gonna find out. So we'll save it. So the top layer, which is just the outline, is at full opacity, and the bottom layer, which is the inside, is at only 10% opacity. And pull it in here. Oh, interesting. Even with the game running, it reloads the graphics. That's quite fun. Now, let's make it a little bit more, 20% maybe? Save that. There you go. So now you can sort of see the shading. And then, what we could do, and we don't have a function for this yet, but in our furniture sprite controller, we go down and find all of our stockpile sprites. One thing you can do on a sprite is you can colorize it, right? And this is what a lot of games, for example, RimWorld does, is they just assign like a semi-random color or whatever to each of your stockpiles. Each one of your sort of meta stockpiles get assigned a different color here, so they just stand out from one another, so you can see where one begins and one's ends. Although the other thing is, in RimWorld, you can have stockpiles next to each other that are different stockpiles. Here, graphically, they would join up together, and we're going to want some sort of better logic for that. I suppose rather than the current like links to similar neighbors, maybe we'll want some other sort of, maybe we'll want to give it some sort of, yeah, so instead of being a flag, right? Because right now we have a flag. True or false links to a neighbor, sort of, become parts of a larger object. But instead what we could do is we could pass a function over here that determines, that takes like a tile and determines if it's linked to its neighboring tiles. The one for the wall could just be literally check to see if the neighbors are the exact same type. So we can make a function that is neighbor of same type, which will have exactly the same behavior as the current version of saying true. But then we could have another one that is neighbor the same part of the same meta stockpile as me? And then we can figure that out later on. But we're going to need, to do that, we're going to need some sort of user interface sort of thing to actually be able to define separate stockpiles. Like, what's the difference between adding a new stockpile over here versus just extending the existing one? Like, what's the difference here? Because right now, again, I didn't go and tint these stockpiles, but they're still, you can see there's no border between these. I think I kind of like the red for this. But that's interesting. It's not something that we've done before. For our furniture, is there any reason that we might not want, I'll just make it as a public for now. You know, and again, there's the idea of separating visuals from content, but I think it's kind of sort of legitimate for our data to actually keep track of some sort of tint, regardless of whether we're displaying this. Let's assume we change our interface to ASCII versus 2D versus 3D versus whatever. The idea of a tint is always going to be there. I mean, alternatively, you could sort of like, you could abstract it by having something like, some sort of hash indirection that is really just a color, etc. No, let's just have public color tint. That might be a lot of fun to do. We're gonna have to make sure that gets copied, obviously. Boop, boop. Like that. We need another one from over here. Right. Hold on. That's if this is if we get there. So no, we're just gonna assume the tints are white. Normally we don't use it. But, for our stockpile, dot tint is equal to color. So let's run this for a second. Comment this out. Let's run this for a moment. La-di-da-da-da-da. And load. And drop a stockpile down here. And let's come up with a tint that we're happy with. Furniture. I guess I could just search for stockpile. That might have been a little bit faster. Grab all this. So I like red. I mean, maybe not too red. I think pure red is fine. And just darken it, desaturate it a little. It's going to look different on everyone's monitor. I'm going to call that one good enough. It's going to be in numbers. So, I guess we'll use the color 32 variant, which actually takes... Oh, it doesn't have a constructor? Oh, hold on. New color 32. So regular color takes floats. Color 32 takes bytes. And it's actually faster for a lot of things. For simplicity, I think we'll still have tint just be color. But the problem is I can't just I don't get floats here. So this way, at least I can take these numbers as is. So of course, the copy and paste would break in mono-develop because it's mono-develop. And therefore, it is bad all the time. All the time. 3131. And 255 for the alpha. Boom. So we now store this tint in our data. We need to make sure that it actually shows up, which we can certainly do. Close you. And this would be our furniture sprite controller. When we create our furniture sprite, and we create our on furniture created, we create a new game object. We set its position. Get sprite for furniture. Oh, there we go. Add component sprite renderer. So what we're going to want to do over here is say sr.color is equal to our furniture dot, oops, not tile, tint. Like that. And I don't know, on furniture change. Maybe we'll grab it at the same time. There we go. So that way if the sprite or the tint changes for any reason. So now, I believe if we hit play, and I hit load, that. What? Oh, I made an assumption. And you know when you assume, you make a... Yeah, I assumed that this would default to white, but apparently it doesn't. Apparently it defaults to, like, nothingness as a color. Well, actually, here, before I change anything here, let's hit play again. Because our walls and our doors are gone. Why is that? Well, they're still there. But I hadn't realized, yeah, if you don't set color to anything, it goes 0 across the board, including the alpha. Right? If I go to turn up the alpha on, I don't know where that wall is, over there, you can see it. So we need to make sure that this is set to color.white as the default. There we go. I assumed that was going to be the case. I was wrong. And we hit load. There we go. So everything tinted pure white means you just get their normal color over here because it just multiplies by 1, which does nothing. But our stockpiles are nicely red. It means we can assign a tint and code now, which I think is going to be really useful later on for lots and lots of different things. So there you go. We still, visually this looks like a mega stockpile. In code, it's not working that way. We might do that next. I'm not sure. You're gonna have to think about it. We'll see. Thanks for watching, folks. See you next time. Thank you to everyone who pledged to support this project in March and is therefore funding these videos from April to early May. And especially these Mike Check supporters. A lot of familiar names. Wes Oldenbeving, Craig Mortel, Neil Blakey, Milner, Speedy Savant, Valiant Cake Fiend, Aaron Toibson, Marius Fieldvold, Jan Torivel, maybe, I hope, Julien Auger-Lafont, Stephen Stager, Michael McClintock, Kale the Quick, Drazion, Bite Rash, Adjective, and absolutely everyone who just watches and favorites and likes and comments and has subscribed to the channel. You guys make this continue to happen, and I appreciate it so much. See you next time, folks.